Good morning. Super excited to introduce you guys to Glam Chats. We will be doing them live every Monday morning, 10 a.m. Everybody's welcome to join in. They're free. We're going to have topics that we discuss. They will be changing. I will kind of let you guys know what those are so that you can hop in on things that interest you. But I also want to take this time as a time where we can discuss anything you need. So we will discuss a particular topic. I'll go over everything I know about it, give you tons of information. It'll be broadcasted in several places. And then any questions you have really about anything, we'll chat about. So I'm super excited to dive in today. And I want to talk about working with an assistant. Towards the end of my career, I actually sometimes worked with two assistants. So I'm very familiar with what it looks like. I stopped shampooing, toning unless I needed to, even blow drying whenever I was pregnant. And I was really able to increase my income, work smarter, not harder, and honestly just take the things out that I didn't like to do. And I think that's a big, important consideration when you're thinking about burnout. It's not always just about efficiency. Sometimes it's about, hey, I really don't like to shampoo. It hurts my back. It hurts my wrists. I'm tired of it and I don't need to be doing it. I can teach someone else to do this and still get the same service results. So let's jump right in. Are you ready to hire an assistant? This is a big question. I oftentimes have people come to me when it's a little bit early in the process and they say, I want an assistant. And I get it. It's great to work with an assistant. A lot of us had them when we were at commissioned salons before we went independent. What you have to keep in mind is when you hire an assistant as an independent contractor, you are the boss. So there's more responsibility involved than at a commissioned salon. You're doing the hiring, the training, the paying, the payroll. So keep that in mind. One thing, a good test is, are you making enough money? That's it. Even if you're super busy, do you have enough money to add the payroll to your expenses? And the truth is, assistants can be kind of pricey. And what you pay is up to you. But here in a little while, whenever we go over ethics, I'll give you kind of the industry standard and what it looks like to pay an assistant. But you really have to do your calculations, see what your averages are. I like to break it down hourly and say, this is how much I'm going to pay an assistant per hour. And this is how much I average making per hour. Now, if that makes sense, like you're making 150 an hour and you're going to pay your assistant $20 an hour and you're still going to make 130, awesome. If you do these averages and you find that on average, you have some time that you're not booked and you're really making closer to like $60 an hour and you're going to pay an assistant $20 an hour plus your other expenses, it might not be the right time. And that's where we need to talk about your efficiency and how we can get you prepared to have an assistant. Are you busy enough? Another part to this is, do you need an assistant? Even if you can afford one, if you like the time with your clients, you take your time, you enjoy shampooing, you enjoy blow drying, you enjoy the conversations, you have plenty of time to spend with them, and you really don't want to outsource any of those things, an assistant might not be right for you. And I've worked with a lot of stylists that weren't candidates for assistants. And that could be because they really, truly wanted to be in control of every part of the service. And that's great. But sometimes bringing in an assistant can add extra stress and anxiety if you don't want to give up that control. So that's something you want to take into consideration when you're hiring. Next is your hours. If you're hiring an assistant and they're looking for a full-time gig, but really you're only busy about 25 hours a week, this is something you need to discuss with your assistant when hiring. Are they okay with only working 20, 25 hours a week? Is that comfortable for them? Can they afford to live off of that? Especially if some weeks are 40 hours and some weeks are 10 hours. Can they do that? Do they have a family at home? Do they need set hours? These are things we have to think about. And this goes back to being an assistant. Whenever you are applying for a job, these are important things to ask. How many hours will I be guaranteed? Are these hours guaranteed each week or does it fluctuate week to week? Are my days always the same or am I expected to all of a sudden come in on a Sunday? And it's totally fine if you're okay with it, but you really need to ask the questions so you know exactly what to expect. Now, The other thing that's so important to define when you're hiring an assistant is your expectations. And I think sometimes we hire before we even know what our expectations are. So we bring in an assistant and it's kind of like, oh, well, we'll just figure it out as we go. And I just think that that leads to lack of communication and can sometimes lead you to having your assistant do things that they're not comfortable with, or not getting the most out of your assistant, and they're not getting the most out of the education with you. So I always recommend writing out some sort of a contract that just clearly defines your expectations. Is your assistant shooting your social media for you? Are they posting for you? Are they checking out your clients, which I absolutely recommend that they are. Bringing your clients into the space, checking them in and out at the end, recommending products and selling products. Do they get a commission if they sell your client a product? That's a great area because technically you sold the product. But if they walk them up there, talk them into it, do they get a little bit of cut of that commission? Do they get a cut of your tips? My assistant didn't, because my clients were so good at tipping my assistant that I didn't necessarily need to do that. Sometimes I did anyway, but that's something that you need to take into consideration. Does your assistant blow dry? Do they tone? Do they shampoo? What is their level of expertise? Do they go get you coffee? Do they order in food? How much are they cleaning up after you? And I recommend that you have them do all these things, but the most important part is that you are clearly defining these roles for your assistant. We've got somebody joining in. Hi, Ashley. Um, so write these things down. Have your assistant sign off on all of their tasks, have them initial each one individually, sit down and have a conversation of, when I say clean up, here's what I'm going to expect. You're going to help me with towels. You're going to wipe down my bowl. You're going to sweep hair as we go. You're going to clean the space before we leave. Because you can't just say you're going to clean up and the next thing you know, you're saying, okay, I need you to go in the bathroom and clean the toilet. That might not be something your assistant expected when they signed up for this. Same with being an assistant. Ask these questions. When you say clean up, can you list off all of my chores just so I'm prepared and can make sure that I'm comfortable with all of them? And I think stylists hiring assistants, look for your assistant asking these questions. These are great questions, and it lets you know that they want to be prepared for everything that you could potentially be expecting them to do. So, definitely let your assistant know those roles, clearly define them before the interview process even starts. Have this list and have it be part of what you guys talk about. Um, what's next? Where do you find an assistant? This is a big question we get. Are we hiring assistants off of hiring sites? Are we using Craigslist, Facebook, Instagram? Are you posting on Instagram that you need an assistant? How much should your assistant know when they start? What are you looking for? So I found that I really appreciate assistants that have already been in the beauty industry as either receptionists, as maybe a nail tech. My assistant was a nail tech. Maybe they were an esthetician and they've just gone to beauty school, someone who has some sort of experience in the industry, someone who maybe went to work at like a Supercuts or a Pro Cuts and realized they didn't have the experience that they needed and now they want to assist, but they've had a little bit of time on the floor. Or I love an assistant that works at a dry bar or a blowout place. So they're already doing shampoos and blowouts all day long. So the training is minimal. What I want you to not get caught up on is potential. Like, this person's so sweet. She doesn't really know how to blow dry or shampoo or apply color, but I can teach that. Well, the problem is you might spend a lot of time and money teaching it. So I definitely recommend bringing in someone who already has a little bit of experience so that you spend a lot less time and money training. You have to keep in mind that you could spend 2 to 3 months training an assistant, teaching them everything you know, getting them to where they can shampoo and blow dry, and then they could quit and go work somewhere else. So don't put your time and money into something that could not possibly work out. Now, if they're great shampooing and great at blow drying, but they've never worked with color, great, we can teach them that. If they're excellent at applying color, but their blow dries need a little bit of work, We can teach that, but you don't want to start with someone who's so fresh and nervous that they don't even know where to start. That turns into a lot of time and work for you. Um, and for assistants, somebody coming straight out of school, this is a good opportunity to hear what a stylist is looking for. Maybe you want to go work at a blowout bar for a little while or have lots of practice in school before you apply. But when you walk into that interview, be prepared to do a test out where you're going to do a blowout, or you're going to actually do like an audition and you're prepared to do that. We have a question. What is a fair price point to pay an assistant? Um, so, you know, honestly, the industry standard right now is around $20 an hour. You can get away with a little bit less, like $16 an hour if you're providing a lot of education, or if you don't plan on doing a lot of education, I would say to even up that a little bit to $22 an hour. It depends on your expectations and how much you're having them do that. Adds to your service value. The other part to consider is tips. Are you tipping them out? Now, the goal here is to get them around $20 an hour, um, including tips. If they make more than that, awesome. But if you do pay $16 an hour, but you know they're going to average $5 to $10 an hour in tips from your clients or from you, or you're going to guarantee that, that's perfectly fine too. Um, Pay scales I don't love because these are W-2 employees. So you can't really fairly put them on a commission, or say, I'm going to pay you $5 per shampoo, or because you could barely, they need to be employed by you. They cannot be 1099 employees because you are setting up their hours. You're telling them when they have to come in. You're giving them jobs. They are your employee. So usually it works out that you pay them $5 per shampoo or whatever, that they're going to make more than minimum wage. But at some point, they might make less than minimum wage, and that's just illegal and it's not ethical. So definitely just choose a pay point that works for both you and then based on their experience and how much they're going to be doing and how much they're going to be tipped out. Again, industry standard is around $20 an hour. And I think it's a very fair pay considering the assistant's role is a temporary position, almost like or an apprenticeship or a mentorship after school where we're not exactly expecting a living wage yet. It's great if you can pay a living wage, but it's kind of an extension of school and you want to keep them there as short as possible to move them on to where they're actually making a lot of money. And that's super important. Um, Finding an assistant. I have been successful in putting out an ad on Instagram and having stylists reach out. So don't be afraid to try that route. It feels a little weird, but go get a blowout, see how good somebody does, find them on Instagram and send them a message. You're not trying to steal them from where they're working. In fact, if they work at a blowout bar and work for you, it's actually great because you know that they're still making enough money to support themselves, especially if you're part-time. So that's a great option. And we did kind of jump into ethical issues, but I want to take that a little bit further when we're considering pay. Do you offer sick leave? If your assistant is not there, do you still pay them for the day? You don't have to. It's just something that you need to talk about. So, what you would hate to happen is your assistant expects sick pay. You guys never talked about it. And now they're out for a week and you're having a communication issue about whether they're going to be paid or not. For me personally, I did not offer sick pay, but I did pay a very fair wage. And it, you know, it's very difficult when your assistant is out sick, very difficult. So that's another thing to take into consideration. Um, so think about that whenever you think about whether you are going to offer any type of leave. You are their employer. Payroll. You do need to hire your assistant as a W-2 employee. Payroll is best hired out. Square has an awesome payroll system. They handle all of your legal documents. They send off all of your payroll reports, all the things that need to be done, they will handle. And then your employee's pay is direct deposited into their account. The taxes are taken out. The taxes that need to be paid for your employee, like your Social Security tax and employee taxes, are automatically sent to the government. You don't have to worry about anything. And at the end of the year, Square will even send out your W-2s to your employee. So that's kind of the route I recommend. I work with a payroll company because I have so many employees and I enjoy that. But you might call around to local payroll companies and see if that fits your needs. But overall, I would go with something like Square, set up your employee, get their direct deposit information. Square provides all the forms and pay them that way. You do want to make sure that you're taking out taxes for them because it can be very problematic to not do that. And then they get hit with a big tax bill where they were expecting to be your employee and it turns out they were a contractor. So again, something you need to discuss. And just to be clear, it's technically not allowed to hire an assistant as a 1099 contractor if you give them hours and expectations, tell them when they have to be there. That's not a private contractor, that's an employee. And ethically, you need to pay them and hire them as a W-2 employee. Another thing ethically is how many hours are they going to get? Again, we've talked about this previously, but this needs to be discussed. If you hire somebody on a full-time basis, but you only give them 20 hours a week because you have a slow month, that means their pay is being cut and they were expecting to work 40 hours a week and now they're only working 20. One way to handle this is if you know that you're coming up on a slower week, this would be a great time to schedule some education time. Maybe let them bring in a model for a model fee. Maybe do some teaching so that you're really paying them back for the time they're spending with you. And this might only be once a month, but really use that time so that they can earn the money that they need to. I paid my assistant during education times. You don't necessarily have to, depending on how this works. If it is a time that you've promised them hours and it's the middle of the day and you're stopping in the middle of the day for an hour to kind of show them color and to chat with them, I would pay them. Now, if you're coming in on a Saturday on your day off so that they can take a client and they can make some money off of it, like charge a service fee or a model fee, after you charge them for the color they use, I would go ahead and let them keep that money, but not pay them an hourly rate. Again, these are things that need to be written down and decided, and it's completely up to you. It's ethical to do it either way, as long as you and your assistant both agree on the terms and you both sign off on it. So keep that in mind. But you do want to make sure that your assistant gets the hours that you promise, that they get a fair pay, and that you guys have completely communicated about all of these terms just to be an ethical employer. Education. We talked a little bit about that, but what do you provide? I mean, is this just something where your assistant or apprentice watches and learns? Is it an assistant or is it an apprentice? Like, is the goal for them to learn and be on the floor and to work for you? Or is this just an assistant position where you need extra hands and you need somebody to clean up? Clearly define that with your employee. I usually like to set up an education system before they start. For example, they're going to do a lot of watch and learn. When we go mix color, I'm going to explain why. If something doesn't go wrong, I'm going to talk about what happened. I'm going to ask them to ask questions. When we tone, I'm going to tell them why we chose the amount of time, why we chose the product we used, why we chose the formula. And we're going to talk about that all the time. I'm going to ask them to watch me do cuts if they're not doing something else so that they can kind of watch and learn. And then the next thing I'm going to do is if we're slow, I'm going to have them bring in a mannequin and work on the mannequin if they finished up all their tasks and chores that we would normally do. I would also say you're going to have model days once a week or once a month or whatever that looks like for you, but let them work on a client and make sure wherever you're working and renting is okay with your assistant coming in and working on a client. At Bex & Co., it's absolutely fine if you're there with them. So we won't have an assistant come in and work by themselves on clients. Whoever's employing them needs to be supervising the service. And we do require that they sign a waiver saying that they understand that it's a assistant working on their hair and that we don't give refunds and that, it might take a little bit longer. And these are templates you can find, but you definitely need to have clients sign off that they understand that they're having their hair done by an assistant. It takes longer. The results may vary, but we're going to get them to something that they like. And that's the goal. And that you're going to be there supervising. And then everything you put on that form, you really need to follow through on. End of apprenticeship. So apprenticeships end for a lot of reasons. A lot of it depends on, is the apprentice ready to go on the floor? And this is the great reason for someone to end, but have an exit strategy. Is your apprentice going to work for you? Are they going to take over some of your clients? Are they going to take on their own clients as a commission employee? Is that okay with your salon? Are they going to rent a chair in the salon you work at? Are they going to go off and work somewhere commission that you recommend? You just need to have an exit strategy for them. And that's the easiest thing, is to just talk to them and find out what they want their exit strategy to be. We have a question, and I'm going to show you guys. This is about the ethical topic. So if your day goes bust and everyone cancels, there's a couple ways to handle this. Or if you're sick, this is going to happen sometimes. On a sick day, I would just say, call your assistant, say, look, I'm sick. I'm sorry. Let them take the day off. That's not a big deal, as long as you're not sick super, super often. That's going to happen. Now, if you have like 3 or 4 days a month where the day just goes bust and you have lots of cancellations, especially if they're in the middle of the day, maybe take a short break, like 30 minutes, go grab lunch that you don't normally get. But then for that next hour or two, I would really take this as an opportunity to teach your assistant and educate, and give them something valuable, instead of just saying, oh, well, we had a cancellation, come back in 3 hours. Because what that does is it puts them on call. So say they came in at 9 and worked to 2, and then they had to come back from 5 to 6, and the middle of their day was empty. They're not making enough for the day to justify them being there all day. So just think of it as, if you were the employee, what would you want? And ask them the question. Listen, we had a cancellation. What do you want to do? Are you tired? Do you want to go home? You're not going to be paid if you do. Or let's hang out. Let me teach you something on the mannequin. Totally up to you, how you want to handle that. But just make sure, again, when you're hiring, you say, sometimes I have cancellations. Here's how we handle it. If I call in sick, you're going to be out too. Those are just conversations you have. So as long as you've clearly defined expectations, you shouldn't have too many problems figuring out what to do on those days when there's cancellations. Back to ending apprenticeships. Here's the hard one. Let's say an apprentice is just not working out for you. This happens. Maybe they're sick too often. Maybe they're just not a good match. Maybe they don't like to perform the tasks that you guys have discussed. You do have the option to let an apprentice go. If you are firing an employee, you need to give them warnings, and you need to give them the opportunity to do better. So let's say you have an employee that's tardy all the time. So you start at 9, you want them there at 8:50 to get you set up, and they're rolling in at like 9:30 or 9:40 every day. They're like, sorry, my car broke down, or I had a flat tire. Once that's happened 3 times, you need to sit down with them, and you need to give them a verbal warning. You need to say, you're super important to me, and I can't do my job without you. So when you're late, it puts my day behind. So how can we help you to be on time? What can we do? How can we get you here at the time you're supposed to be here? And this is a verbal warning letting you know that if we can't do it, this might not be the best fit for you. So let's say that continues to happen and they're tardy, even though you've had the conversation. That's where I would do a written warning. And I would say, hey, we've talked about this. We're still having problems. You understand why you need to be here on time. It's super important. I'm going to have to write you up. I want you to sign this, just saying that you understand that we're working on this, and that you were tardy a lot, and how it affects my business, and that the next step, with however many more tardies you decide, is termination. So once you've given them a fair chance to do their job correctly or correct an issue, and this could be tardies, this could be calling in sick, this could be coming in hungover or not able to work or in inappropriate clothing, whatever it is, you just need to give them a verbal warning, and you need to give them a write-up, and you need to clearly define the expectations. And if they don't meet these expectations, the next step is termination. So you've given them lots of opportunities to correct the problem. And if you terminate them, nothing can come back on you, because you've given them warnings and you've let them know why it's not going to work out. Usually, after the first verbal warning, if it continues to happen, the assistant will kind of quit on their own, knowing that it's not a good fit. And you don't have to go all the way through the termination process, but do know how it works and what you need to do if you do get in that situation. And then lastly, I want to talk about special considerations with assistants. So what is your goal for your assistant? One is, if you're going to go on maternity leave, are you training an assistant to work on your clients while you're gone? And this is what I did. Now, your assistant might not be able to do everything you do, but maybe they could do your one steps. They might could do some of your haircuts, depending on what they are and how trained they are. They might could kind of keep your clients up to date during that 6-week leave, and you could pay them a commission. So what I did was I gave my apprentice a 40% commission. I let them use all my colors, and they were working on my clients. So while I was on a maternity leave, they were still able to work and get paid. They got a ton of practice, and I had all my formula notes and everything prepared for them. Now, I will say your clients will come back and say it wasn't quite the same. And that's where you say, I know it was just a temporary situation while I was out. I don't expect you to see them permanently. It's just something we needed to do while I was out. And they're like, absolutely. I'm so glad you're back. Now, sometimes a client will say, listen, I actually prefer the cheaper price point that I was having with the assistant, and all I'm getting is a one step. Would it be possible to keep seeing them? And that's when you can say, absolutely, because you're going to make a 60% commission off that service. So, this is where you can actually start making money from your assistant and allowing them to get more education and experience. And if you're busy enough, you could actually grow their clientele this way until they're ready to booth rent from you or from the salon. And then you'd be in a position where you're hiring your next assistant. Um, the next thing is if you're on a long sick leave, they could be your emergency backup. So complicated things you could maybe refer to someone else in the salon, but new growth touch-ups or partial highlights or trims, blowouts, you could refer to your assistant. And again, decide on a commission rate, let them use all of your equipment color. Make sure that the salon is okay with you being out while they're doing this, knowing that you're still going to be paying rent. It also protects your place in the salon. I give a maternity leave where you can be gone and still save your space. But a lot of rental salons do not offer this, and you're required to pay for the weeks you're not there. So this would allow you to continue to pay your rent, make enough money to do that, maybe make a little bit of money on the side, and still service your clients. So it's a great thing to do to have your assistant trained to take on some of those clients if you're going to be out for any reason. If anybody has any questions they want to type into the bar, we can really talk about anything anybody wants to. Just a quick wrap up on assistants and kind of what we went over today. I want you to consider if you're one, ready to hire an assistant. Are you busy enough? Can you afford them? Can you give them enough hours? Two, start to clearly define the roles the assistant is going to take on. What is your assistant going to do? Start writing that down and making sure that you have enough responsibilities for them. And when you do hire, make sure they sign off so that they understand. I want you to think about how you're going to hire them, where you're going to look for them. Again, I like looking at like a dry bar or a blow dry bar or a receptionist that's gone to school and they already know how a salon runs, so they can do your bookings for you. They can send your emails. Next, I want you to think about ethical practices, making your assistant a W-2 employee, paying them fairly, deciding on sick leave and how you're going to pay that, how many hours they're going to get, and how you're going to do payroll to make sure their taxes are taken into account. Legal considerations, taxes, payroll, how often are they paid? Do they have sick pay? All those things we've already discussed. What are your expectations? Again, what's your vision? Are they on brand? Are they the person who's going to be a good fit for you? Are they going to be able to do the things you need them to do? Can they shampoo already? Are they already blow drying? They just need a little bit of work to do it like you do. Things to take into consideration. Education. What are you going to provide them? Write it down. Tell them what you expect from them and how often you're going to have education. What do you do at the end of the apprenticeship? Like, are you sending them to a commission salon? Are you getting them a booth rent spot in your salon, or are you going to hire them as your employee? Those are usually the options, something to think about. And then special considerations like sick pay or maternity leave. Question. Let's see. Once they become more busy and taking their own clients, but you want to keep them as a commission employee, what is the typical expectation for pay, benefits, et cetera? So most commission salons don't offer benefits, especially a small scale salon. Like if it's just you and them, they won't expect health insurance or 401k or those things. So unless you can provide that somehow, I wouldn't worry about that. But I would offer either a commission, which is somewhere between 40 and 50%. You can do a straight commission, it's always 40. Or you can do sliding scale, 40 if they do 1,000 a week, 45 if they do 2,000 a week, 50 if they do 3,000 a week, and so forth. You decide what that looks like, but write it down and sign off on it. You can do hourly. I find that a lot of hairstylists don't want to work for an hourly, but that's optional. However, if you're doing hourly and they're busy, you do need to pay them fairly. So that looks like $35 an hour. And the one problem to this is if you're giving them hours to be there and they're not working, you still owe them that hourly, even if they're not working on clients. So I stay away from hourly, but it is an option. But those are generally how you're going to do it. Or at some point, if they don't want to be an employee anymore and they want to go off on their own on booth rent, I would talk to your salon owner and, they've helped you so much. Just let them move on and let them take some of the clients and let them be a booth runner if you feel like they're busy enough to do that. And you feel like that's fair to you because you've made so much money off of them. But again, you have the option of commission where you provide the color for them. They provide their equipment and they are paid 40 to 50% commission hourly. Your choice if you want to try to keep them on hourly or if that's what they prefer, or send them on their way to be a booth runner if they're ready to do that after their apprenticeship. You do want to really think about them as an assistant and what they've offered you. And while we want it to benefit us, we also want to make sure that we're going to have a lot of assistants and we want to be known as an ethical employer. So if it's time to let them go booth rent and they're bringing in a lot of their own clients, let them go do that, hire an next assistant and make commission off that assistant. So it's really up to you, but that's definitely the best options for you. All right. Any more questions or anything that I can help you with before we hop off here? We've kind of done our recap. I'm excited to have done our first Glam chat. This is kind of how it works, where I will come up with a topic. You guys are welcome to send me topics that you would like to chat about or hear me talk about. If I'm an expert in it, I will let you know. And we will talk and chat. You can ask questions. I will even bring some of you on live at some point. I'm going to be doing some interviews on these. So you guys stay tuned. This can be rewatched on Facebook, on my podcast. One more question. LLC or S Corp better for a W-2 employee? So this goes back to how you're already doing your booth rental. So an LLC is the big umbrella. So you're going to have an LLC. This is your business entity. Under the LLC, you're going to have a designation if you choose to be an S Corp. And that is your LLC is designated as an S Corp. What an S Corp means is that you are paying yourself as an employee. The reason you do this is to save self-employment tax, which can be 10 to 15%. With this being said, S Corps have a lot of rules and regulations that you have to follow. So only get into an S Corp if you have a really good bookkeeper and accountant that can make sure and file everything you need to file to be an S Corp and that you're paying yourself. Now, the good news is if you're paying a W-2 employee and you're an S Corp, you can use the same payroll software to pay yourself. So that's the caveat of being an S Corp is you have to pay yourself as an employee. So instead of just paying your employee weekly, you could give yourself a check and give your employee a check, and that's going to check out as an S Corp. So if you feel comfortable following all the rules and regulations and paying yourself a fair wage, you do not pay yourself everything you make. You pay yourself a fair wage, which might be $600 or $700 a month. It depends on what you're making. And your accountant can help you decide on this number. You could definitely be an S Corp and save 10 to 15% on those self-employment taxes. The only caveat is you are going to pay payroll taxes as an employee. So that's why we want to keep that number lower. So for example, say you do 15 hours of bookkeeping and management in your business of your apprentice, you could pay yourself a fair wage, $15 an hour for 15 hours of management in your business. And that makes you an employee of your business and you can pay yourself that via payroll. So yes, absolutely. S Corp is great. If you feel nervous about the regulations of an S Corp, an LLC is perfectly fine, but you just are going to have that self-employment tax. I hope that answers the question. Anyway, any more questions before we sign off of here? I'll give you guys just a second to um, ask me anything. But this was really, really fun. I love to share everything I know with you guys. I do have my course. It's everything you need to know from going from commission to booth rental or independent. And it's a 4 module course. We talk about everything from the nitty gritty, exactly step by step what you need to do, how to bring your clients over, finances, boundaries. And then we interview bookkeepers, accountants, financial advisors, somebody that can help you know how you're going to buy a house as a self-employed person. It's all there. Q&A with independent stylists and how they're doing. So we do have that. You can find that link in bio in my Instagram, or you can go to bexirvine.com. It's all there, but I would love for anybody considering going from commission to independent to consider taking that course. It's going to be everything you need to know. Thanks for being here. I really appreciate you guys listening to me. If you have any questions or want to follow up, I'm always available. Shoot me a message. I also do one-on-one coaching, or let me know of a topic that you guys want to do next week. We will be here 10 a.m. every Monday live. So if you missed this one, join in on the next one. You just click the link in my bio, click the link on my stories. There's a place to register. It's free. And you just hop on at 10 a.m. All the instructions will come to your email and we will chat. So thanks for being a part of my Glam chat, guys. I really appreciate you. And we'll talk soon. Bye.